Now, there's also the 5 directions. The difficulty here is that in order to understand the 5 directions, or where they fit within this framework, is that the 5 directions are not related to the 5 phases, right? Or because often we see, well, it's 5 directions and the 5 phases, you know, the 5 elements. So then they must match. The problem is they don't match, right? Because if you lock yourself in with the 5 phases, your 5 elements, you are now locked with a certain direction has to go in a certain, like forward has to go up, because if forward is associated with fire, fire goes up. Same with, you know, if you say, well, back is earth, then that means that you're only going to go down while going backwards. And that's not the case. There's all these examples within the form where we can punch low, right? Or we can punch high, or we can push to the side. So the direction doesn't have, that we're using within the form, that we see in the form, isn't locked to a certain upper or downness or even quality, right? You can have you can have backward movements, right, where you're stepping back, but actually you're pressing forward or even pressing down. You can push to the side. None of these things correspond to the 5 elements. So the only thing that matches is the fact there's 5 of them. But the 5 that is referenced in the 5 directions is actually a reference to, again, the Bagua. Because the Bagua is not just this circle of trigrams. It also fits within what's called the magic square. Right? So if you look at Feng Shui, this is why I'm not making all this up. If you look at Feng Shui, they use both the Bagua and they use a square because each trigram has a numerological value. So the magic square is simply a square of 3 by 3 square, and with numbers in each square, and the square in the middle is the number 5, right? And then the numbers, you have 9, 1, and all around. That's a way for a Feng Shui practitioner to map out a room, a building, whatever, so that it actually, so the map on the ground reflects the Bagua. Now, right there should give you a hint as to why we have 5 directions. The 5 and the number 5 is the central square, which is surrounded by the Bagua within Feng Shui practice. And the Feng Shui practice comes out of the fact that the magic square and all that were ways of representing yin and yang energies even before the Bagua was invented, right? So the Bagua is later than this idea of the magic square, which was represented in symbolic form, essentially, right? It's what was found on the back of a turtle, the Lo Shu map and the Heitu map. So, right, those are the ancestors of the Bagua, and the number 5 in the middle. So 5 represents the 4 directions, or the four horizons, and the central pillar. And the central pillar is central equilibrium. So the advantage of thinking this way, is that 5 is actually 8 directions plus the vertical line. And I mean by 8 directions, what I mean is if you're sitting in the middle of a square, you have the 4 cardinal directions and you have the 4 diagonals. And you see immediately how that relates to the Bagua. The Bagua, you have your 4 cardinal main moves and the 4 diagonals. When we move, our feet are along either the cardinal directions or the diagonals, right? So that's how the number 5 relates to all of that. The 5 is actually related to the Bagua, not related to the 5 elements, right? So what does that mean? That means that now, when we do the form, we can generate a quality, and then we move along one of these 9 directions. 9, remember, it's the 8 directions of the 4 cardinal, 4 diagonals, and central equilibrium. Right. So now the form is used as a way to illustrate how these combinations work. And So here's a good example. When we do play the pipa, let's do play the pipa. Here, here, here. So like I said, it's a strike, roll back, pluck, push. So there's a line, so this is the line of intent is here. We step to the diagonal of the line of intent and then step back towards that line. All right? That's a punch arriving chest, neck high, right? In the first duan, we have a move. After this high brush knee, we step, we push. That move is exactly like play the pipa, except that instead of dealing with a punch that comes up high, we're taking a punch down low. So we're doing roll back, and now we have a problem, right? So there's a punch that comes in, and I deflect, roll back. That's the roll back. But now I need to do a pluck. So how do I do a pluck from here? I'm sitting on my right leg, which means this arm is the full arm. So I have to do the pluck with this arm. If I do it here, then I'm offside, right? I'm double weighted. So the way to do that is I need to bring my arm up so that now my elbow can get into the crook of my opponent's arm, right? Because his punch is here. I deflect and I control. I bring the elbow in. Now my elbow is in his elbow, and now I do a pluck. That's the pluck, except that now the pluck is going sideways instead of down, like in play the pipa. And then now I can rise up and push, right? So play the pipa, roll back, pluck, roll back along the horizontal, pluck along the vertical, push along the vertical, essentially. Here we have roll back, pluck along the horizontal, and then a push along the vertical. So we're expressing the same qualities of energy, except in different directions. And we're solving issues. I'm here. How can I do a pluck from here? I have to do this. I have to bring my elbow up over my opponent's arm. So now I have a place, right? I have an anchor where I can now do a pluck sideways. The pluck sideways is the same pluck that we see in, right? Here, single whip. An attack comes, roll back, pluck, punch. Same thing, right? But so we're solving these equations of, somebody is attacking you from different directions. What are these combinations? What do they look like when the situation is different? Because you can just do roll back all the time. What's the difference, right? Why am I doing here instead of here? Well, it depends on where my arm is compared to my opponent's arm. All right? That's why I can do roll back, pluck, punch. But I do single whip. Why am I doing single whip here instead of here? Well, here, maybe I can't reach with my elbow. If I can't reach with my elbow, then I have to use my hand. So I make a hook hand and do this. If I make a hook hand, I can't really pull down without losing the arm. So I go sideways, right? So you're solving all these problems with the same qualities. It's just that you're using whatever part of the body you need in order to hook, have contact with whatever it is in order to generate that quality. And if you think back to your practice of push hands, this is where you see that that's what comes naturally. When we're doing push hands, right? You're not thinking, aha, I'm going to use my hand, I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to push. You're moving, and it's like, oh, my hand is here, I'm going to push. Or you're here, and it's like, oh, maybe it's my forearm. I'm going to deflect with the forearm instead of the hand. Why are you thinking about it? No, you're just instinctively doing it because that's the point that was in contact. So you're going to use that point, right? This is the exact same thing in the form. I've done a deflection. Well, is my elbow close enough that I can just yank down? No? Well, then maybe I need to go this way, right? Is my opponent further this way than this way? Well, if he's far away this way, doing a pluck is probably not going to help. But if he's here, and I can pluck him this way, and I can sweep his foot at the same time, now he's falling down. That's cool. If I'm here, well, maybe he's too far that way, and this is not going to work because he's slightly off center, or he's slightly too far back. So all these are solutions to the issue of, the distance that you have with, and the relationship that you have with your opponent, but they're basically the same qualities of energy. And when you start thinking about that, and breaking all these movements down that we have in the form, then the applications emerge out of them quite easily, and it becomes a lot clearer, right?